Hey, good morning. Sorry about that. Some technical difficulties. Fun fact, I do believe that human beings who are able to express themselves in an oral fashion in regards to very complex, serious subject matters should be given a chance to express themselves. For example, in my personal opinion, I have never seen a human being who is able to express themselves for stopping taking opioids on a public channel. Why? Opioid addiction, which whether or not you want to believe that I wasn't addicted while at the same time I was addicted. And the reason why I say that is because in order for someone to really understand the power of pharmacology as it pertains to the actual biocycle of a human being, please just simply listen to what I have to say. The videos that are going to be coming up at the end of filming probably this morning are going to be my last videos where I act erratic, crazy, or angry, and I'll explain to you why. One of the things that a lot of people simply don't want to recognize is basic facts, and basic facts are very simple. I'm a big fan of the simplicity of monkey math or moonkey math, and I know the difference, and I assure you it is just because of a little very intelligent boy named Jackson who taught it to me that I call it monkey math. It is not. Anyways, short story long, the number 9 is a frequent repetitive factor in the simplicity of the breakdown of the monkey math. So for me, living in 9 and going to 9 afterwards is a balanced act. The reason why I move buildings, whether or not people understand this or not, is yes, I got into an argument with the doorman Tommy, but in New York City, an argument with a doorman doesn't have you moved, especially because A, I'm not a disturbance. We never had noise complaints or any of that stuff. So, not to mention the fact that I smoked weed with this doorman and we were friends. And there was another one, Juan or Jose. It doesn't matter. He speaks fluent English as an American citizen like me. So there were no cultural differences, and as a matter of fact, I actually like the two guys. So the idea of being kicked out of a building that you're not late on rent on and you have no issues with, not only is laughable, but a lot of people don't understand that at 45 Wall Street is where the vault that I needed Mallory to access for, bills and things like that, and it was a box and chase, and she and I were victims of a home invasion, and I just didn't feel comfortable with her walking around with cash from and to the box. And rather than her communicating and listening to me, she just continued to do the things that I asked her not to do. So the apartment was moved over so that she doesn't have to walk to get to the money. It's not that complicated, but like when you're a human being who knows that that's true, and you go out of your way to lie about your husband in federal court, it really, I'm going to spend a little bit of time trying to express myself, but I'm not going to spend too much time. Life is very short. And one thing you need to understand is that I'm not a traditional addict, nor do I consider myself in risk of any type because I have no interest in ever taking any of these pills. Neither a 15 milligram opioid in the morning, and yeah, I'm in physical pain because I am a cancer survivor, and whether or not that is a cancer that was induced through a mast cell tumor or negligence on the behalf of several doctors, it's not here for anyone to debate. It is my personal health, and I think that it's really psychotic for my wife and her family to constantly be ridiculing me to a point where they denied my own health. Like, for example, this is a man, I am a man who has taken care of their daughter for decades, and when I got sick, they literally barely came by. My father-in-law wouldn't look at me like I did something. I'm dying in a hospital bed. My mother-in-law brings me puzzles and says, you're in front of my eyes, says to my wife, says, your father really hates hospitals. Like, I'm the one, Jamie, you could cough in here. I respect your privacy of not wanting to be on camera, but
I don't want to
essentially, I think that people don't understand that the enforcement of unconstitutional court orders in itself is criminal. Forget about the actual criminal acts that are conducted. And I think it's really laughable to think that I, as a human being, am going to continue this insanely unproductive and unhealthy narrative and rhetoric to a point where I wasn't even going to court because, truthfully, I'm not interested in lying, and I think that something happened last week that wasn't the end of the world. The actual event that happened, as a matter of fact, the man that was involved that you would think is like a bad person, until you experience and understand, like, the guy was really drunk. So when a human being is intoxicated, there is a plausible understanding level for any human being that is normal and say, look, some men, you know, they don't really learn their lesson. I guess either handcuffs are on them for a night or they're punched in the face. And like, I am not one of those guys, luckily. And one of the things that I find to be extremely insulting, or I did find it to be extremely insulting, one thing I'll tell you is, look, you might see me acting fast, and that's just because I'm tired. I'm tired of the bullshit. I'm tired of people taking advantage of me and then pretending like they're not. Like, I'm tired of my wife and her friends inventing stories about the only guy that has ever done anything for them. They're fucking losers. Like, I'm not joking. Like, line them up. They're losers. Human beings who have accomplished zero, except maybe birthing a child through their meat wallet, as Soldier Boy says. Like, with all due respect to all of these women that have an opinion on me, show me one of them that has changed any person's life. For example, the woman who Mallory is, Mallory's best friend, and she and Mallory were the first people to alienate and kidnap my children. It all happened, you know, and for me, knowing that the disgustingness of the premeditation or the plan that I kind of needed to suppress using medication, because the reality is, what kind of a person would do something like this? Like, really, like, I'm gonna need like 24 hours to really digest the fact that after a lifetime of being kind to an entire family, like, for example, Jamie over there, okay? Does anybody want to take a stab at why I know for a fact that I'm right? Would you like to take a stab? All right, no problem. I'll explain. You see, this video could be misconstrued as some form of harassment by Jamie. Jamie has nothing to do with this channel. She has a job, and any interference in a job is just unconstitutional. And the entire concept of ignoring the fact that she's the mother of, as she calls them, ABC, but Crosby and Brady are awesome, and they've been nothing but kind to me. And she has a daughter that is young, and she might not really understand how kind Jamie is. And I think that when a human being is young, they need to get a number of passes, not a second chance. They need a first chance. They need a first chance at a relationship that's not mired in stress and weight issues on Jamie's side, obviously. Her daughter's beyond healthy, and even a positive affirmation is not something that she's interested in. So I can't really dive down that subject matter, but I think that Jamie is not only an incredible mom. If you actually knew what she went through as a human being, you would have a completely different light of who she is, why she is, and given the circumstances, I don't think Jamie has ever had a chance, and I'll explain to you why. Based on what I heard and what happened, the human being that people meet is not the same human being that would have been there had her father or any person of any responsible nature stepped in and just showed a little support. The actual actions that occurred were semi-voluntary. And I say that because the issue really stemmed from the lack of adherence to love. And it is the lack of just safe space or fear of being ridiculed. And Jamie was right to not tell anyone. And that's the scariest part of this entire thing. And if it wasn't for one cool dude and his parents, her boyfriend at the time, I don't think she would have had any support whatsoever. Is anything? It's
100% true.
All right. Are you cool with me saying this? I'm not like...
I am. It's been a really...
I think that a lot of people don't know that your husband knows this story.
Correct.
And he is using childhood trauma of unspeakable nature in order to kidnap and alienate your children. And that's the point of this video. Is like what my wife does is, you know, between me and her. Truthfully, Jamie, you and I both know that there's not a single person on earth that tells me what to do.
No,
I think at this point everyone understands that.
That's very true.
So unless I did something wrong to be incarcerated, at which point I have to listen to everything the person says because I'm in the custody of the state, and I think a lot of people don't really understand why being falsely arrested 6 times, 7 times, 10 times. I'm telling you right now, okay, there is no human being on earth that is actually cognizant, meaning like you could pass the test to be awake and have an actual taxable income within the government, that can think that a man who has spent 26 years in a loving relationship can just turn around and be arrested on 6 different occasions with no probable cause. At which point then 5 of the 6 arrests have been eliminated. The only one that's left is me doing this, communicating on YouTube. So as I've said, what is the 2 numbers that I lived at on Wall Street balanced out on monkey math? 9. It's okay, you're going to forget. So the answer is 9. So for example, for today's date, if you eliminate 26, monkey math, what's today's date?
9.
Great. Coincidence, right?
Coincidence.
Jamie, do you know what the probability of one person being involved in 2 national narratives that are at the heart of the top 10 of the 21st century are? One person. Forget about the fact that it's the same person.
1 in a million.
It's more than 1 in multiple billions.
Wow.
And the reason for that is because what you're talking about is the probability of it being random, not the probability of it occurring. The probability of it occurring is in the trillions. The probability of it being random,
Right.
meaning like it in order for it to happen randomly, like both Rittenhouse and Menendez, imagine a roulette wheel with a billion holes, and it has to hit 1 in a billion for you to actually mathematically say that was a random event. Not to mention the fact that I have an entire YouTube channel where I expressly explain myself. Well, I did for a while. See, it's funny when you actually hear
It is.
right? Because people don't really understand that normal people don't have a YouTube channel that they don't charge $1 for that shows, hey, Donald Trump knows that I have his clubs because I've been filming for 5 years and he went from being president to not president to president again. So when you go through something like that in the middle of being also charged criminally of the whole thing, you actually, when you get back in the office, say, what the fuck is going on? At which point the Secret Service comes and shows you a YouTube channel. That's what actually happens in real life. In your brain, Donald Trump is preparing to do a speech about something that doesn't exist in some soundstage somewhere. That's not what happens. What happens is that there's a human being that is in charge of running the country on the face, and then there's me who has to just calmly sit and scratch my head because, in my personal opinion, I think it is the first time I've ever seen a federal judge. I gotta get the court orders. Has your court order come in, JB, yet? No? All right. Once I see a court order, then I'll film what is the truth, what actually happened, because I believe that everyone gets a chance for a fair shake, and I don't think that, I'm not like a big, I would honestly, like, let's say like an old person puts their hands on someone, I don't think I have the ability to hit an old person. Like, if you see an old man slapping a woman, I don't have the ability to hit this old man. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
I would hold a person and whatever. I don't have the ability to assault an old person or a child. It is not something I can live with myself.
Yeah.
I'm not taking any responsibility, but if there is like a drunk dude that's assaulting a woman, I'm going to take the man off. Like, I don't care about the criminal ramifications. That's not something that a normal person thinks about when another person is being assaulted. Like, that's not a normal way of thought. It is a selfish way of thought. It is thinking about yourself. It is thinking about yourself in a system of misunderstandings. It is not the way I'm going to teach my boys. My boys need to know that either you lead, you follow, or you get out of the way. And I learned that from the movies. I didn't learn that from the army. I'm not an enlisted soldier. I would never go through basic training. I have more than enough skill sets that were given to me legitimately and honestly, where I don't need to climb a wall, shave my head, or get yelled at in order to do a job that I don't want to do. So before I become a heroin-addled army vet, maybe I should think about not going into basic training. So if you're a person that has seen Full Metal Jacket and voluntarily submits themselves to Army Infantry 6 weeks training program, there's no reason for you to be surprised at the ramifications and the end result of what happens. So please understand that I'm a big fan of the United States Armed Forces. I don't believe that we can exist as a society without a standing army. But at the same time, human beings need to be a little bit more... What a beautiful day, Jamie.
It's stunning.
You want to play some tennis?
I would love to.
Look, here's one way for everyone at home to know that I'm back. The real Dan was wide awake at about 4:30 in the morning and was ready to run about 100 laps in the oval because I took my shirt off in the video that's coming up and I had nothing but celluloid and fat in front of me. It's not complicated. All you have to do is exercise. But luckily for me, Jamie is a really good tennis player, and I really want to learn. I've always wanted to learn tennis, but I grew up poor with a psychotic father who believed that I should ride horses, shoot guns, and learn how to take a punch in the face and break my knuckles as a priority rather than letting me play tennis. So that's cool. Oh, and I ended up being really good at chess and winning a couple of contests. But never mind about that. I think that the idea of me being insane and not having an opportunity to express the fact that, look, 9 years ago I walked out from my West Orange bedroom. My dad just died. It was a very sad moment. It was very hard for me. I needed the medication in order to suppress the pain in my ass. And when I realized that the actual pain in my ass was my relationship that I was suppressing, it became very, very difficult to acknowledge the reality that it is my fault for making the wrong choice in who I had children with. And I didn't want to accept that reality because I would never be able to see my father. Look him in the eye. I gotta go. Chill. Look. That's what I used to do. I used to get really, really upset, press the red button, chain smoke or whatever. I don't have to do that anymore, all right? What you're watching is the transformation of a human being virtually on an impossible level. I'm good. I really don't need a paper towel. And one of the reasons why I became so self-conscious, if you notice that I'm constantly explaining myself about being nasally, and the reason for that is because I've never done cocaine, but I've smelled it before, and it smells okay. And I say that because I'm not interested in inventing a narrative where I'm a drug addict if something as a normal person is I've tried, while at the same time the entire subject matter is so taboo that we live in a society of full-blown alcoholics that burn through hundreds of thousands of dollars in liquor money a year while pointing a finger at a guy who makes a YouTube channel and talks about the truth in his life. Think about the kind of society that you're creating for your children. Whether or not you give a shit, that's a completely different story. I know I give a shit, but at the same time, watching my father become erratic, enraged, and extremely upset at not understanding how big the world is and how small the world that he created in his mind is, was very easy for me to really get over a completely psychotic family from Long Island who doesn't comprehend that they have a brilliant part of their family. Obviously not in the immediate circle, but they have a brilliant part of their family. The Shapiros are extremely intelligent and kind, and especially to me. They're afraid of this family, which is why they don't reach out to me, but that's neither here nor there. But the family that I really, like for example, this woman, Linda Shapiro, if I had to do it all over again, she would be my mother. And I believe that she is the most perfect balanced combination of kindness, intelligence, and general, and honestly, her husband is incredible. And he's been nothing but kind to me, but I do have, it doesn't matter what age you're at or anything like that, as a man to another man, I do have a material issue with Jess Shapiro's inability to stand up and say, wait a second, this kid Daniel's been nothing good for us for 25 years. This is wild. Like, this is crazy. I'm in elementary education. I've spent my entire life separating a father from a child that's a good father is not only horrible, and the fact that he wasn't able to do that, and both of them get a pass, and I'll tell you why. They suffered a tragedy, and when human beings suffer an unspeakable tragedy, there needs to be care and love taken from the person who is wanting the reception of love. A human being who's not understanding, in my opinion, doesn't really balance the need for the love. For me, believe me, if they die a peaceful life and never contact me again, I'm not going to lose a night of sleep, but at the same time, I do want them to understand that when April Shapiro presented the story or the question of what are the only two foods that go from a liquid to a solid, and she very carefully, in a magic form, gives you the first answer, which is a simple protein or whatever, it's egg. Egg is a liquid, you heat it up, it goes to a solid. But believe it or not, the question is, what is the second food? And most people just take a stab at it, and the closest thing I've ever heard is chocolate, but it's a long story. In my opinion, the answer is blood. And I didn't want to say it because of how uncomfortable I felt at the family laughing at everything I say, that obviously, when you're talking about food, if I have someone like me, Dan Reese, says blood, the automatic assumption is not blood pudding, which is where the episode of 2010, How It's Made, because it was a hard question. I didn't, whatever, but it wasn't until and I don't know if it's the answer because I don't communicate with that family, but that's my stab from 2010. And it's what's so funny? Well, yeah, that's so, it's the coagulation aspect of it, and blood pudding is a food. I mean, I won't even try it, not personally, but because I haven't been a vampire yet, and I've experienced a lot of things, but the whole blood
Did
thing.
you say I haven't been a vampire yet?
Well, the concept of being a vampire is that you live forever, so you can try everything.
Hear
But
him say that.
well, think about the amount of things that I've done, except
Be a vampire, obviously.
Well, why would
Maybe you are.
Why would a
I don't
human
know what
being
you
in
do.
2026 want to voluntarily eat something with the word blood in it? Meaning, you want to change it to the word sausage, that's cool. But I'm not eating anything with the
No.
word blood in it
No.
because I'm not a vampire.
No.
So I don't. There's so much food that doesn't
blood
have.
orange. I take it back.
That's just a word. That's based on blood. I mean, that's an orange. That's not blood.
Yeah.
In blood pudding, that's actual blood.
Yeah, that's gross.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying the word is gross. I'm saying the word in context to reality. If it wasn't blood, it would be okay. Fake blood as a kid, candy, that's cool. You're into that sort of thing. But when you talk about real blood being eaten in real life, that's where I draw the line. And it's not that I don't eat steak that is medium plus. Sometimes I like medium rare. It depends on, yeah, I wouldn't say ugh. I would say more a higher cut of beef, guaranteed, Japanese, different sides, different food. I think that rare steak and well done steak are just different foods, even though it's the same food. Given the fact that, Jamie's cool and everything like that, but I'm going out to dinner alone. If my assistant wants to roll with me or something like that, that's cool. But I'm not the kind of guy that disrespects children. And one of the things that I find extremely appalling is the lack of awareness and care for these 3 kids. Because ultimately, look, I'm going to explain to you, whether or not you believe this, there's hundreds of millions of people around the world that truly believe that the mother is far more responsible for childbirth than the actual child. And metaphysically and scientifically, I can prove you completely wrong if you disagree with me. So please, save yourself the breath. Now, being that it may that she is an incredible mother, she's not a drug addict, I'm not a drug addict in case anyone cares, but I do talk quickly when it comes to communication points. And I think that it's very easy to discredit a human being who truly has shown his abilities through the context of, look, for example, show me another human being that you actually have ever met that can publicly disseminate content via public forum. And then we can talk about criticizing what I do. Because until then, you're really talking about uncharted territories because I'm the only human being in the world that does this. So what are we doing? Trying to stop something that we don't know about? Nobody understands the long-term effects on the brain rot that is given to our kids in today's society. In my personal experience, I don't think I've ever met my kids. Because once they became sentient, they were handed an iPad, an iPhone, or something like that, and no matter how much communication I did with my wife, I couldn't get her to understand how dangerous these devices are. And when we look at the reality of hey, I just had the Blast family engage in kidnapping, alienation, and it wasn't until this video they're like, wait a second, what are we doing? Look, guys, my boys are safe. I'm not a moron. I know that they're safe, but mentally, to take children away from a father is far worse for the children than the father. For example, legally speaking, if I wanted to father more children, I could father more children. I don't want to father more children. I have no interest. I love my boys. But at the same time, it's not healthy for me to engage in using them as any form of a platform of revenge. So for anyone who thinks that there's some sort of, yesterday was the Kiwanis Carnival, I think maybe my son would think that I'd be sneaking in the bushes. Yeah, I'm sure there's a bunch of federal agents making sure that everything's safe, but who gives a fuck? My boys need space to grow and flourish, and the idea of utilizing them as pawns in an offensive or a defensive strategy is just not something I'll ever engage in. So it's not that I don't love them or anything like that, it's just that I'm dealing with a human being who has literally, for example, I get laughed at for being a mathematician or people not believing me. All right? Either one, it doesn't matter. And I want to remind everyone that is in my family that I was the one that created a pool to make sure that Drake's weight, height, and everything, and I gave a prize, and it was a big deal, and I believe either Sarah or Sabrina won. And the reason why I say I think it was Sabrina. I do. It might have been Sarah now that I think about it. But the point is that these two people are integral. Like Sarah is my sister-in-law, who's both an attorney and married to my bankruptcy attorney brother-in-law. And when you really look at the realities of what they did, it all backfired in their faces. And like for the rest of my life, I got to just shake my head and be like, look, guys, I know you might think that you're really special, but I never forced anything on Mallory whatsoever. As a matter of fact, Rita and Mark can even tell you that for the first 5 years of the relationship, I tried to break up with your daughter, like heavy. And it wasn't until I just became exhausted with this girl that just wouldn't leave me the fuck alone. And eventually, once I got in trouble and she never missed a visit, I said to myself, all right, she's a good girl. I'll go on a couple of vacations and this and that. And then, again, the same thing happened. I had to do some work. And this time, her mom and her folded all my laundry, had it all prepped twice a week, every book I wanted. And I was in Rikers Island. And like, that's fucking 13 years ago. And like, to think that this is the same family that now is afraid of me. Like, how are you afraid of me if I was in Rikers Island for a drug charge that wasn't even, we were in weed was half legalized in the country. Like the idea of an undercover police officer that for me to sell 2 pounds of, I had like $1 million in diamonds in the safe that was taken. Why would I sell this asshole 2 pounds of pot? Like, and the point of all of this is that at no time did anyone reflect on Daniel. At no time does anyone look, I'm gonna do what I thought I was gonna do. And one of the things you need to understand is there might be a video that's coming up over here where I do express that I believe that I was an adult living with disabilities. If you ask me the truth is I believe that I no longer suffer from the same debilitating emotional weight. So the truth is, I don't think that I'm going to raise my voice in court ever for the rest of my life because the people that I'm dealing with are not actual human beings. Like, for example, this guy Matthew Smoro, right? So I think he has kids. I really don't give a shit. But for a grown man to be able to actually earn $1 on the misery of children, that's a broken human being. That's not a normal human being. That's a human being that needs to be isolated and taken out of society in some sort of a straitjacket or something, because you're just within a fraction. Like, for example, if a human being like that gets into a car accident, what's to say that they won't kill a child voluntarily? If they're able to hurt a child for money, I assure you this person can do absolutely anything. Trust me. And I say trust me because I've dealt with taking these monsters down on a very high level, on a federal level. Look, there's only 3 things that will happen after you watch this video tomorrow morning. You're either going to wake up in a sunny day or raining, I don't really know. You're not going to wake up, or you're going to end up in a black site somewhere. And I don't really care, and I'll explain to you, because the next morning is the same thing. I have nothing to do with anything that the federal government does. So if you're a human being that is in charge of municipal systems, federal systems, or anything like that, and you find yourself in a black site with a hood over your head, I have nothing to do with that. Bob Menendez is even in prison at this point. And I mean, we're talking about Bob Menendez, and a lot of people don't really understand it because they're not from Jersey, but this is the real Teflon Don, okay? This guy's untouchable. He's not black, he's not white, he's not brown, he's nothing. He's like literally untouchable. And it wasn't until his literal wife killed a human being that like it didn't really sink in. So now, not only did his wife kill a human being and he covered the whole thing up, he's also mathematically responsible for billions of dollars funneling for terrorist aid. So every person that is upset about terrorist activity can blame Bob Menendez. I promise you, it funnels through a massive organization called the Democratic Power Brokering Machine of Northern New Jersey. It's exposed. Nobody really understands what to do. Federal judges are trying to do the best they can to silence Jamie over here. Is this true?
Yes.
You got federal judges supporting criminal activity, stating on the record that perjury is okay. I've got, like, if you don't believe that I'm a federal agent, I don't want to be a federal agent. I'm not interested in being in anything that has to do with something I'm not a part of. So, like, if you think that, like, a human being who literally delivers the sentencing memorandum to the entire world, has nothing to do with the case, that's cool. You're obviously a fucking moron. And scary. Because, like, if you could deny that, you're just part of the same people that deny Holocaust and shit. And, like, that's cool. Like, I'm cool with that. You know, my grandfather actually was killed in World War II for complications. Not in World War II. It took maybe 40 years from the actual wounds. But we rhesus men tend to be more resilient than we look. And a lot of that has to do with my father's, you know, the whole, like, skip a generation thing. Believe it or not, my father is a classically trained Greco-Roman wrestler as well as part of the Russian Army Corps of Engineers. I know a lot of you are not impressed by that, but that is because he didn't qualify for the standards for what was expected of him, so he was just handed an amazing life. He fucked that up as well, not because he made a mistake, but because he married the wrong person. And when I woke up on that day and I saw my boys and my wife yelling at me while I'm bleeding out of my body, I realized, fuck, I might have married the wrong person. And 9 years later, I realized why I took those pills, and I realized that I don't think I'd be alive today if it wasn't for the doctors that helped me. See, a lot of people misunderstand the concept of time, and they want to undo it by litigating or revenge tactics or try to make money on a circumstance that's truly horrible. But not me. You see, litigation and all these things, they just keep you in the past. I'm not saying I'm not okay with lawsuits. I mean, if you're living in an American modern society and you have a conflict, there's literally no way to resolve it except through the courts. I mean, like, you could take matters into your own hands, but it's going to backfire. It's just not, like, I don't even know how to say it without an emotional element to it. There is zero capacity for any resolution when violence is involved. And the reason why I say this is because maybe on text message I engaged with my wife where I shouldn't have, and honestly, I picked up some bad habits to mitigate with the stresses of just being in a horrible marriage. And I don't think anyone understands that I have no interest in stalking or hurting a person that I want to break up with. And I think that, like, people have watched so many movies that they truly believe that this is some sort of an act where, like, a human being can film thousands of videos and then say, look, I don't have opium or benzodiazepine in my bloodstream right now to a point where it affects any mental capacity. That doesn't mean I'm off my meds. I'm not a mentally unstable human being. I can point to an entire lifetime of activity. So for you to misunderstand how difficult opium, it's not a dependency, it's in your blood, it's in your bones. So I had 4 stints in county jail, and a lot of that has to do with the timing and being able to go to 7 days and trigger another pill at 8, because, you know, before you go into convulsive shock for your biochemistry being rapidly changed, if you're an important human being to the US government, they're going to create a series of controlled environments to monitor your, you know, release. And if you don't believe me, that's cool, because I am not interested in proving anything. I met a nice girl. She seems like she's pretty cool. She knows I'm good at making money. I'm not interested in hurting anyone. She's got 3 awesome kids. I got 2 kids. We're not a nuclear family, but, you know, when Thanksgiving comes around, I'm not interested in being alone. And my brother's a dick. My mom's really mean. And I'm not a mean person. I was born like my father and my grandfather, with a very kind heart and a very big brain and a huge set of balls. And apparently one of those 3 is enough. So I'm going to take a little bit of a break and get some fresh air and stretch and get ready to play some tennis tonight. I don't know why this doesn't work. Hey Jamie, press the red button for me. Go up. Go. Get Jamie. It's okay. You're doing a great job. Excellent. Hey, how are you? My name is Dan Reeses. I understand some of you might not understand what's going on, so I figured, why don't I just say it? You know, I've spent a couple of years trying to express myself, but clearly nothing I've done. My assistant over here, Jamie Resnick, who has zero respect for being a mother, a woman, and a very hardworking individual over here, it seems like people don't really understand that a human being who works for another human being is only doing the best they can. Jamie, say hello.
Hello.
The concept of a human being being told that by doing their job in full legal light is somehow harassing or breaking the law, and actually convincing Jamie that it's true is in itself an act of a conspiracy that's not true. So, for example, one of the most important parts for this conspiracy to have worked is the full alienation of my children from me. I assure you, in this dynamic of myself, my wife, Jared Resnick, Jamie's ex-husband, and Jamie, and for anyone that doesn't know, please understand, Jamie doesn't play professional tennis, nor does any part of her job include. How's my hair, by the way?
Yeah, it's really good. Your hair's grown in so well. It's a little wild, but I mean.
Well, there's a lot that I could say about that, but in general, I think that why don't you ask me, what is it that the audience is about to see?
What is
Because
the audience about to see?
everything for the last 9 years, you're witnessing a human being who, for the first time, and it took me about 4 tries, but I was able to get it on the 5th try. What you're watching is the first time in U.S. history that a human being is able to detox from opioids live and on camera. And the reason why it's such a big deal is that if you don't understand how important the opioid epidemic is and how important a human being who is able to successfully detox and has the strength to go on camera and talk about it, then you just don't understand the amount of people that have lost loved ones to the opioid epidemic. So if for that, I want to ask Jamie, do you understand what I just said?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's
Do
incredible.
you agree with what I just said?
100%. I've been here watching, and
Yeah.
it's incredible.
So in case anyone's wondering, tomorrow, once it's all complete, I will be firing all of my doctors because I've been under the medical care of a human being since the age of 8. This man treats me like gold. He's a medical professional. He's a doctor. He's not some voodoo quack. Although he did, ironically, in the 1970s get his degree from Mexico, but the medical degree, that's only because he was really poor. And one of the most amazing parts about this doctor, first and foremost, he lived in the coolest house in Caldwell, New Jersey, and obviously his son is Josh, because every fucking person from Caldwell I've ever met is named Josh. But that part of the story, you know, the ironic part of all of this, and I'm going to just go ahead and do everything. See, all of this, 18 USC, that's all true. That's not a lie, but truth be told, like once I film one video that expresses it, anything after that is just me expressing my frustration and anger as a human being who really is a patriot, who loves this country, who would do anything for this country, to watch people that are in politics. Jamie, how does my ass look? Does my ass look big?
No.
That's a Larry Sanders reference in case anyone's wondering.
No, Larry.
And like for anyone who thinks that my goal is just to do nothing except talk about my ex-wife, it's simply not true. One of the reasons why I had a very hard time was that I worked my ass off on building my life. My dad can give me shit. And one of the reasons I say that is because I love my dad. I do. It's just that I don't think anyone understands how hard it is to be the son of a man who literally doesn't understand the importance of showering. So when you're dealing with that dynamic from the start, oh, here we go.
In a world of plain cucumbers, be a spicy pickle.
I see, I don't like spicy food that much, but once again, truth be told, when you're dealing with a situation where you're the first human being in televised history to detox off of opioids live and on camera and talk about it, it's a world where human beings will think that there's something mentally wrong with me instead of recognizing that I had colon cancer. And as a direct result, I was also really horribly treated by my wife. It's not that complicated. Like, I don't understand what the big deal is. Like, Jamie's really nice to me. That's it. That's all it is. Is this true?
Yeah, I think I am.
Yeah, that's all this is. She's just a really good mom. And I think that, like, the laughable part of it is that, like, we don't live in a world where children are guaranteed to grow up healthy. So the fact that she has not 1, not 2, but 3 healthy children really is not something that can be overlooked when you're dealing with a zero-sum game. One-on-one zero-sum with children is extremely dangerous because what you're dealing with is a situation that can really backfire on you. So, for example, children need their mother. Do you agree?
Absolutely.
You know, the whole father thing comes into play from a protective role. And remember, this is just my opinion. I think both parents are extremely important. But if you want to get down to the root of it, I think that it's very hard to have children in 2026 without a woman. But the man part of it is just a seed. That's number one. So some can argue that's the most important part. I believe that the woman's role is far in excess of what the men's role is, especially because you have a human being growing inside of you. Now, in a sober state,
That is weird.
and the reason why I say sober state is because humans don't really understand that the lasting effects of use of opioids is throughout their entire life. So for someone who was dependent on a cycle of repetitive pain management, there is very little percentage in the fact that human beings won't reach for an opioid. Me personally, like I said, I do not recommend anyone doing this or trying this. Please understand that what you're dealing with is a very sensitive subject matter, and at no time are you allowed to experiment with opioids. It is one of the most deadliest addictive substances imaginable. I can't express to anyone how relieved I am that the process is not only over, that you would have to pay me money. Like honestly, like if I have my wisdom teeth pulled, I have 3 left, and I would take a painkiller. Like that's not the issue. The issue is that when you're dealing with a persistent pain for the rest of your life, you have to make a decision of whether or not you want to be dependent on pain management. Like the medical industry cannot constantly be at fault for human beings' decisions. And this is me on camera standing up for my own decisions, my own rights, and saying, look, I'm sure that blame could be thrown around, but the first person that deserves blame is the guy in the mirror, okay? I'm the one that enabled my wife to continue to mistreat me. I'm the one that continued to come home like a loving father, and I'm the one that was hurt by my father's death. This is all because of my actions, not because of her actions. Her actions, she ended up without a friend, and that's why I'm extremely upset in my circumstances, is because my wife and I, we were close friends, and we didn't need to end it like this. It was like a car accident that I did everything I could to avoid, but clearly because of you, Jamie, people don't want to take personal responsibility. But the truth is, I take personal responsibility. And I think the first step is to clean up my life and end this nonsense. And ending this nonsense, like for me to get rid of Jamie in my life as a solution would be the equivalent of Jamie making sure her kids don't exist. Like the concept of meeting a human being, knowing that this is a normal person who did nothing wrong, and being able to walk away from the relationship because you are a contributing factor to a big part of her life being destroyed. I take responsibility for it. That's why she's on camera. I mean, she's not on camera, she's just a part of this, is because human beings need to understand that, like, in order to move on with everyone's lives, people need to actually resolve their conflicts. And by keeping me a prisoner in this weird psychological power play, as if like the boys don't need their dad, or there's like some human being that can replace me. And like, all right, I'm a little arrogant, fine, but like, look at my wife, man. Like, she's a really beautiful woman. Like guys that aren't confident don't get women like that. Like, pick up a book, watch a movie. I don't know what to tell you. But like, filming this content alone is really difficult. So the concept of the fact that I'm willing to show my body or a disability that I have, look, I am not mentally retarded. I understand that it's very easy to attribute what I have to some sort of a mental illness or maybe a multiple personality disorder. Like when a human being is on YouTube and saying, look, for the last 9 years, I've had to take opioids in the morning, 15 milligrams Roxicet, and then in order to come off of the cycle, I would have to take Xanax. It was in my system. It wasn't something that I was conscious about the decisions that I was making. And it's not something that I invented. I didn't invent colon cancer. I didn't invent the way human beings digest. And I sure as shit had nothing to do with the pharmacology industry. And I did. I believed in the doctors that I worked with like an idiot for the second time in my life. The first time, if you're paying attention, was when I was told that I had an enlarged prostate when I actually had an abscess. That's a full-blown misdiagnosis. Nobody got sued. I still make a joke, and like, maybe I have bigger finger, you know, like my doctor, that's the punchline. The lead up is a little painful. And when you deal with proctology jokes, like, it's just, the writing is on the wall, and the material writes itself. Oh, and by the way, I really don't give a shit about your opinion. I know maybe in the beginning I may have seemed like I really care about what you think. If I cared about what you thought, I would take money or tell you to like or subscribe or put this act on a theater. I genuinely, when I say I don't give a shit, I genuinely don't give a shit. What I've done is so fucking remarkable that I myself am amazed at the fact that we live in a society that doesn't recognize how valuable the actual video footage of a human being who is live on camera detoxing off an opioid, while at the same time expressly stating, look guys, I understand that it's very easy to pretend like I don't know anything about addiction. Not only have I studied it my entire life, I've actually experienced some of the most interesting non-decision, like I didn't make the decision to be addicted to a painkiller. I need pain pills in order to not be in pain, and it makes me happy, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to be dealing with the matter like an adult. Like, I had colon cancer. I want to be in denial of it, so I took a painkiller. But the reality is, it's colon cancer, and it was 4 invasive surgeries. It's the equivalent of like a Band-Aid times every duct tape roll you can imagine, off the hairiest Bulgarian back you can imagine. Like, wow. Look, visceral reactions to a human being who's able to orate their thoughts and feelings is very normal in a world where human beings are addicted to this phone. The whole point of the context of this channel is that going forward, tomorrow morning, I'm going to release all the old footage. First, I'm going to line it up, then I'm going to explain to you what you're watching, if I'm nice. If not, who gives a shit? It was all done during a time where I was a victim of the pharmacology industry of the modern United States medical system. It is not something that I can take responsibility for. What I can take responsibility for is not wanting to be in physical or emotional pain. So you could sue me for that. Because last time I checked, I don't think anyone is able to give themselves colon cancer, let alone the fact that mine was a direct negligence of misdiagnosis of $1 billion medical group. And this is already the second or third time this has happened. So I've given up on modern medicine because I believe that I'll be dead if I go one time again to this system that really is negligent in every aspect imaginable. Because I truly don't believe that I would have an issue if I was truly diagnosed with a abscess or a fistula. Look, believe it or not, if you like to kiss human beings, then you must recognize that there's a waste component in the human body. I'm not interested in that subject matter because I'm not like that kind of guy. And believe it or not, I'm a very traditional human being when it comes to my private life. And there was a couple of slip-ups because I was in a really bad mental state in the last year, but a year and a half ago, I guess, before everything happened. But truthfully, when looking at the context and allowing me to express myself, it really is sadistic the way I've been treated as a human being. Because once again, you have to understand that I was living with a human being that would hide my medication, would not be supportive, would laugh at me, would talk about it publicly, would throw my pills around. And when you're dealing with a human being that really doesn't understand the concept of colon cancer or the idea of mental health or any of the things, while at the same time truly being really sadistic, and an example of that is the way she has treated my children. So like any human being who, like Jared Resnick, like I don't believe that a man who is able to do that to minors and separate them from a loving mother deserves to ever make surrogate decisions. And I say that very expressly because I don't believe that it is my right to make this like comments about my wife, because I think that she's the mother of my kids. And although I disagree with the decisions she has made, I think that she's the one that has to live a lifetime of knowing that she purposefully destroyed their memories for some reason. And for that, it leaves me with my head scratching and thinking to myself, like, at what point, like, what are we doing now? Are we like getting the courts to convince like the world that Jamie's a bad mom and Mal's a good mom? Because to me, I believe that Jamie's an amazing mom, and I think that anyone who says otherwise, like for example, I don't think that your husband really understands that what he did is the most insulting thing for him, his family. You have to understand that those kids will be healthy and amazing for the rest of your life. To separate them from their mother at the most integral part of their development is the worst thing you can possibly do as a father. Literally, you might as well like give chemotherapy to a completely healthy child. Like that's one step above or below. I'm not really sure how you want to treat it, because there's a big argument that can be made regarding the medical prognosis and how it's perceived. But you know, when a human being hurts the mental state of the development of the unnatural separation of a child who has a healthy and lovable, Jamie, say, I love my kids.
Oh, I love them so much.
Are you okay?
I miss them so much. Every
Right.
second of every day.
Yeah, I don't think people...
244 days.
I don't think every day you count a day, right? I don't think people really understand that Jamie had 3 children grown in her own body. And I think that when a man who did absolutely nothing is able to use his money, influence, and what little voice he has in the courts to separate the children from you, all in an effort to either hurt you or hurt them. Because remember, they're not my children. They're not my children. So like to me, I find and like to think that
Well, I think that
The
you
I-
know,
what?
the real
Sorry.
eye-opening moment was the fact that it wasn't just like the cherry on top to take the kids away on baseless allegations. It was then to continue.
right.
I have the kids now. I want everything else.
Yeah.
You know?
So the scariest part about this is that the courts are in full support of Jared Resnick. And Jared Resnick literally committed perjury as an attorney and had to go. Is this true?
Yes,
Yeah. So, and you have evidence of all this, right?
I have evidence.
So one of the things that's really fascinating is that people actually don't understand that a cause of bankruptcy, a legitimate cause, is fraud. So if a human being is a victim of perjury and they're forced to go into court for 50 fucking days and are falsely arrested, they're not able to earn an income. Like, for example, are you a college graduate?
I am.
Will anyone hire someone with a mugshot photo?
No.
That's it. You see, like, you guys don't understand that what Mallory and Jared have done have destroyed Jamie's ability to earn an income, and all I've done is try to maintain that level of value that she has, because the truth is, why can't Jamie just go get a job and I film the videos by myself if you really think that there's some sort of a sinister motive behind it? And the truth is that there isn't. It's just that you've destroyed this woman's ability to earn an income, be a mother, and literally do anything, to a point where I had to go into federal court via an actual filing and to look at the response, so that by the time that Jamie filed her personal bankruptcy, it was evident that all I wanted to do was to show that the system is designed to suppress the whistleblower that has the facts and to highlight. As a matter of fact, I think Jamie had said to me that she and Mal were next to each other at the table. Like,
No, she was at the next table.
but she was at the table, right?
Yeah.
So that's a violation of the order, right?
Yeah.
Meaning, like, did you go there? Did you ask Mallory to show up there?
No.
Great. So she has a right to be there, but she doesn't have the right to file a restraining order against you, then violate the same said restraining order. You understand? Like, you didn't file the restraining order against her.
No.
So she violated voluntarily, meaning like she could have gone on Zoom. If she's that afraid of you, why was she not on Zoom? And that part of it, that's where winner takes all. And I will explain to you that this is not a game, but in reality, there's absolutely no way to enforce a restraining order against a human being if you voluntarily violate that restraining order. Full violation, meaning she was represented by an attorney. She was there in voluntary capacity, meaning that that TRO that was filed against Jamie had to be proven to be false. So yeah, okay, maybe I went out of my way to like be honest on YouTube so that people don't really understand that I am going through so much that if I'm able to just express myself, you won't understand that what you're doing is actually criminal in itself based on the laws that you have arbitrarily created. So I had to go past the actual law because no one gives a shit about that. So I had to create a box within a box within a box, which is virtually impossible in narrative format. So yesterday, what I was able to, I don't know if I witnessed it or not, I got to see the court order and then I'll know. You think that like I would need to see video or audio. Au contraire, mon frere, I know what I'm doing on this one. And when we talk about the reality of being able to enforce something, it is literally unenforceable once you break it yourself. And I think that in that note, I'm going to say, Jamie, are you satisfied with what I have done to assist you in being a mother, a human being, and having your rights restored?
Absolutely, yes.
Awesome.
Thank
Taking
you.
my $1.
Yay.
All right, I got to go, guys. Be easy, little homie. I'll be home soon. Good morning. My name is Daniel M. Reeses, and today is Monday, almost noon, and Jamie's out. So I am really able to discuss certain subject matters that I think, given the circumstances of what's happened, it's very, very difficult to ignore the reality of just how fucked up the situation has gotten. And furthermore, my clarity is at an all-time high. And I'll explain to you why. If you were to ask me, do you feel any material difference between not taking your medication that you took for the last 7 years after being... Oh, small fact, fun fact. I don't know if I can be classified as technically a cancer survivor because I did not have a mast cell tumor. What I had was an abscess that was misdiagnosed as a prostatitis for approximately 7 years, at which point it grew extremely large and I had 4 invasive colon surgeries and was bedridden for weeks or months at a time for approximately 6-month period of time with a few months of health in between. So I'm in remission. So, and it was done by the oncology department of Englewood Medical Center. And so the reality is I don't know. And there's like this debate because I've said before, like, you know, I'm a cancer survivor. And then sometimes I say like, I didn't have cancer. And then people just don't like react the same way as if I didn't have 4 invasive surgeries and some of the most horrific memories in my life. So I bypassed that since it was treated under the oncology department. And my pain management doctor, whose name I'm not going to say, he was a young guy at the time. I was about 36, 37, maybe 36, 37. And he was maybe 5 years older than me. He still is, thank God. He's alive. And he went from pain management to general practice, and I needed a physician. And the issue really was that my issue was that when my father was really sick, the doctor that was treating him in almost identical circumstances ended up going to his own private practice, and I attributed my father's health and my father being saved with this doctor. So when I experienced misdiagnosis after misdiagnosis after misdiagnosis, and to this day, I still think, furthermore, he and I have the same name. There's a famous actor named Daniel Day Kim, who he reminds me of. Now, you might think that I, as a non-actor, and whatever judgment you want to have against me, I'm crazy, but I assure you, the reason why you think that I'm crazy is because I've never had Facebook, social media, or any concern about what your opinion is of me. The reason for that is because I've never had an opinion of you on a digital front. I have never experienced the feelings that Jamie has described to me over the last week or so that occur. And unfortunately, something really horrible happened last week, which I can't really discuss, but that triggered, and no, I mean like something good also happened, but that good thing should never have happened to be, it's like people who celebrate beating cancer. Yes, I agree with you that beating cancer isn't a remarkable thing. But when you celebrate beating things like lung cancer, which a person who's been smoking their whole life, it's hard to ignore the correlations. So it really begs the question. And the reason why I say this is because I grew up with my father. And I also say that one of the things that I'm really interested in is, so I stopped taking Xanax and I stopped taking my pain management pill that I take once a day for 7 or 8 years, and it has an opioid component in it, a strong opioid component in it that allowed me to function on a daily basis, but caused a lot of ripple effects for when I didn't have it. And to get the medication was a completely arduous process that, even though my pain management doctor was my general physician, his lack of care for the balance between social responsibility of a growing epidemic of overuse of opioids to Daniel M. Rees's case didn't correlate to the reality where no matter how many times I said to him, Doc, look, I ran a bunch of pawn shops. I know about how guys like myself who experience some traumatic issues like a knee surgery or something get hooked on medication. Next thing they know, they're selling all their Rolexes and snorting heroin, and it's a nightmare story. I've seen it. The doctor and I have had maybe 50 conversations like this. At one point, he experienced something personal that I truly had a lot of empathy for, and it didn't seem like that was nearly enough to resonate to the fact that I needed the medication in order to manage the pain in my ass. Now, most people don't have a pain in their ass, but I do. And I have a number of pains in my asses. As a matter of fact, there are human beings who literally are a pain in my ass. Now, I have a literal pain in my ass. So the English language poor concept and the conceptualization of the fact that my grandfather was a war hero. Whether or not my family wants to diminish what he did as one of the leaders of the Russian front to take down the Germans and truly win the war to beat Adolf Hitler, that's okay. If they don't really understand the significance of the role that he played and how my father was not a liar and had zero motivation to lie to me, that's okay. And the fact that historically everything that I say not only adds up, but the fact that he died from lead poisoning from shrapnel in his neck and how little respect the family actually has for him only goes to show that my obsession with my grandfather was very much warranted. And if anyone doesn't know this, I actually gave myself my own middle name, which is his name, which is Meyer. And I've never met a single human being in my life or heard of anyone named Meyer. Well, he was actually Myron, which I've heard of, but Miron is Meyer. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Miron is Myron. Look, let's not have a sociological debate about nomenclature by yourself. And I say this because when I speak to the camera, I try to envision a human being that is listening to me, a family member, a random human, someone who's never met Dan Rhesus before. My grandfather was a war hero who came back and started a business. Now, please remember, in Russia, it wasn't like starting a business was possible. So in a place where you're not allowed to start a business, to have control over your own income by your own actions was really, really rare. So that was really considered something called Geschäft, which is kind of like shady, but please remember that the system itself is like a shittier version of Nazis. The whole point of the misconception of communism is because most people don't really understand that historically speaking, the majority of Russians blamed Hitler's rise to power on the extreme lack of awareness the Jewish population had between the disparity of their wealth and the majority of the other people living between World War I and World War II and pre-World War I, but that was, there were monarchs involved. But essentially, the Russian population that were not Jewish took it upon themselves to first blame, obviously, Adolf Hitler and then blame the Jews. So if anyone doesn't understand where that comes from. Now, my grandfather was, and has been Jewish. He was diminutive, maybe 5'5", 5'6", if that. And looked identical to Rodney Dangerfield. So whether or not he said he's Jewish or not Jewish, he literally looks like the Jewest Jew you can imagine. And given the fact that, so he didn't really give a shit. So after they all beat the Nazis, by the time they even arrived, about like, I want to say like 32 million, 37 million, or something like that, 32 or 37 million. 32 or 37 million human beings mounted a counterattack against Adolf Hitler. The Americans sent 5 to 10 million on D-Day. I don't really know the exact numbers because I grew up in a country where the word 27 million, which is the amount of Russians that died, is not spoken in modern history classes. So for example, if you're watching this video and this is the first time that you knew that there were 6 million Jews, gypsies, or human beings that Hitler exterminated, and this is the first time that you're hearing that there were 27 million Russians that were killed during World War II, then please understand that you are not the audience that I'm looking for. Why? Because the audience that I'm looking for doesn't believe that there were 27 million human beings. Because if you're listening to and you believe what I say, then you obviously believe the other things that I say. And as outlandish as they are, I'm here to prove or disprove in a court of law, under oath, at the highest level, on YouTube, whatever you want, exactly what I'm saying. The only two people I've ever met who have very similar grandfather stories were obviously my wife, who, if you know or don't know, her grandfather Bruno is one of the most inspiring war stories you'll ever hear, who, during the Korean War, I think my father-in-law would tell me it's Korean War, because I thought it was World War II, but whatever. He says Korea, and who am I to debate? I never met the guy. He unfortunately passed away before I even met Mal, but the story is very simple. He was a radio communications expert, one of those guys that carry the wooden boxes so that, like, you know, the armies can talk. He then finished his tours of duty, went back to Forest Hills, Queens, built one of these unbelievable things by himself with his friends, which was one of those switch ports that go back and forth. And they owned an answering service business up until a few months after I was arrested. And my father-in-law found out that his son-in-law, I honestly to this day still have no idea what he was thinking. But in general, he has persistently been mad at me for things that I didn't do. I genuinely was arrested. That part is real. But I wasn't the one that hid my true nature from him. It was his daughter. So rather than acknowledging the reality that his daughter is the one that lied to him And I kept asking her to you know, look, maybe like we either should break up or tell your parents the truth of what's going on or this and that. There was none of that as an option. And that really, now that I think about it, that really is one of the red flags that I should have considered. But the truth is, I truly think that my wife is one of the most beautiful women in the entire world. I think that she is striking. I think that when she is in a good mood and she's in a good place, she's one of the most unique personalities imaginable. But that not only was in the past, please listen to me very carefully. When I had announced on YouTube that Project Butterfly was finished, I didn't really understand the nature of the after effects. Please remember that one of the most important factors of me being incarcerated for 31 days was that I was able to observe the human brain as it comes off of drugs. Now, conventional wisdom would say that I'm looking at human beings that are opioid addicts or any of that. Not at all. I'm looking at every human being that has had a smartphone in their face for the last couple of years, months, whatever. Human beings that are completely hypnotized by the algorithm and what their adverse reaction or their general reaction is to having the phones taken away and the general nature of being in an environment where they no longer have access to ignore the reality of the situation they're in. And what better place to do it than in the bullpens of Essex County Jail? Now, one of the things that I noticed when I was there was the human rights violations, the atrocities, the general misconceptions, and the illegal nature of the unconstitutional acts conducted by the county officials. That is something that I will address after my personal life is taken care of. So what everyone knows is that the longer that I'm kept in flux and my children are kept from me. Now, one of the things you must understand is that I do look forward to filming a day where I can say, look, this is what happens to a human being who has had his children stolen from him. I have not seen my children under the threat of being arrested for no reason whatsoever. I looked at last year's Mother's Day, and even after my wife took the kids to Florida, I still bought her flowers, did an amazing thing, and I'm sorry. Like, I don't know how to say this. We went to Ruth Chris. Like, I promise you, it's mind-boggling for me. Like, I'll tell you something. One of the bad positions that I'm in is that I've been filming content for 5-6 years openly and, quote, controversially. The truth is, it's not controversial at all. I come up here, I fucking tell you guys, look, see this asshole right here, Bob Menendez? There are literally trillions of dollars of American government money that will not be misappropriated because this went national. And a lot of politicians know about this and they'll think twice. That fact does not correlate in human beings' brains. They don't comprehend that what I say as a status, like for example, I'm a federal agent. There's a lot of people that laugh at me. I had my VPA badge taken away. I promise you, I wanted it taken away so that I can have a conversation. If I'm not a human being that is recognized for the hundreds of thousands of dollars that I've given to the New York City Police Department through the captain that I gave it to legally and legitimately, then I want my money back from the NYPD and you guys can have your fucking badge because all I use it for is to help people. I don't use it to get any favors in any way. I use it to help people or communicate faster in a way that allows people to understand that, hey, my goal here is to either shut the fuck up or help. You know that whole lead, stay, or get out of the way? I don't get out of the way. I'm just not one of those individuals that is interested in reinventing facts when in reality, I have spent my entire life making sure that I'm good, that I'm a good person. And truthfully, one of the things that I want to say is that I really want everyone to understand that when I look at the images that I'm going to be posting on my Instagram account, I noticed something very, very interesting about them. And it's really sad that I didn't notice it at the time. And you'll notice that I look very different. And one of the reasons why I changed the way I look is because I never had motivation to look better. And I never understood why. And one of the reasons I want to tell you is that, truthfully, I think that I paid my wife 5 to 10 compliments a day, but not because I was brown-nosing, because she truly is a gorgeous girl. And every female who is in a relationship, I was told that that's what they want to hear from thousands of movies that I've seen. Not to mention the actual human beings that are successfully married. But truthfully, one thing that is not overlooked is the fact that culturally, the Russians, as much as crazy as they are, they're not crazy. Different values, guys, in different country. But the Russian culture respects women much higher than the American culture, because the American culture likes to talk about it. But then when it comes down to it, the actual respect for women's rights is not really there. So when it does come out in public, it's a lot of eye rolling, oh God, women's rights. And the reality is that it is laughable to deny how much more important women are in the process of childbirth and child rearing. Remember, it's a culture of men working, women taking care of children. There's nothing wrong with that if that's what you believe in. And one of the things that you must understand is that when you go into the context of Women's Day or the concept of giving flowers to a woman on a kid's birthday, to think that a person that was raised in that environment can possibly be anti-women, misogynistic, or harmful to women in any way is not only laughable, it's actually scary. It's scary to think that there's actual human beings that believe in this, because the motivation of the people lying is so great, it's so obvious, it's so laughable, that my biggest issue is that people will hurt themselves based on what will happen. And I will explain to you something. In the video that you watched earlier, I very clearly say if anyone comes at me or anyone comes for me or to help me in any way, I'm going to stop the videos. But if someone hurts themselves, I'm not going to stop the videos. As a matter of fact, that is motivation for everyone to never hurt themselves, because that'll never stop the videos. Meaning that I will continue, and I'm going to be sad, but the reality is that human beings who are in a mental state that is so bad that they're willing to kill themselves over content that they have no control over need help. And I'm not interested in hurting anyone. So I toe the line between human beings who will blame me for things that they choose to do versus the reality of the fact that adults should be responsible for their own decisions and not blame strong individuals who are willing to express themselves via public media. And the saddest reality of the whole thing is that my brother Mark, who you might think I talked badly about in the previous video, he is the same kid whose grandfather was part of the team that killed Hitler. Okay, fine. Who cares? And then the reality is that the only other person that I've ever met who matches Mal's pedigree, believe it or not, is Jamie. Because if you drive on 280, there's a giant 70 to 150,000 square foot, and I have to go into a building to tell you the exact square footage. And that's the interesting part about some of the things that I picked up on my travels of buying 27 commercial properties is I'm able to walk through almost any single building and tell you the square footage is within about 5%. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of other things, valuation and things like that. And one thing I want to remind everyone that rather than having a traditional education, I got the majority of what I learned from my father in the thousands of hours that I spent with him trying to avoid the realities of the harshness of my mother's lack of appreciation and use of me as a cow that milks or the golden goose, whatever. I'm cool with that. It's okay. What's in the past is in the past. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that by holding on to fear, memories of the past, they're actually hurting themselves in the future. The present is not something that anyone can control because it happens faster than you can imagine. Anyone who understands this understands why I'm laughing. There is no present, meaning that at any split second of time, you can have the future and the past fold the second that your brain even recognizes the present. I know, it's just the way it is. So imagine a fold or a butterfly where this is the future and this is the past. And the center is the present. But it has no space. But it exists. Right here. Right now. We're in the present. You're watching this in the present. But like, if you think about it, you're already thinking about it in the past. And when you think about what I will do or say about it, that's in the future. So the present doesn't really exist in this channel. And I know it's hard to imagine, but the reality is that Jamie's, well, first and foremost, that's Jamie's grandfather, and then, and you know, the reality is that that red building on the left side of 280 that belonged to Jamie's grandfather owned a very successful coal company, and obviously, you know, intergenerational wealth, and there's a lot of commentary that I'm going to save. because I saw my father-in-law do a really good job shepherding a small business with his brother. So for me, who has a very skewed perspective of the positive aspects that can happen in that story, and listening to what happened with Jamie and her father, that's the tip of the dick on that one. This human being has made some of the worst business decisions in human history. But please remember, this is from Jamie's side of the story. Maybe the reality was totally different. And human beings should never judge anyone unless A, they heard something from their own mouth. And even at that time, and I'll tell you why you shouldn't judge anyone. Because I used to go to this awesome camp, and I had a friend named Brett. I've had a bunch of close friends named Brett, but the first one was Brett Niedermeyer. Great guy. And he's super talented. He's in the music business. I think he does a lot of work with kids as far as like musically talented. And I've actually seen with my own eyes, because ironically enough, at Cedar Hill Country Club over here, he was hired for an event to do like a rock band with kids. And I swear to God, I saw it like 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds. I'm a human being who doesn't know how to play any musical instruments, and my hands, they're not exactly worker hands. But I did mow a lawn for the third time in my life this weekend, so that was really cool, and I'll tell you about that later. So the first time was at Ira Berger's house, the second time was at Stokes Forest when I was in prison, and the third time was in Jamie's front yard. So obviously I have a significant amount of experience mowing yards. No, I'm just kidding. I've always paid landscapers. Sometimes I got into fights with them, but usually I tried to pay them. But in general, I'm not a deadbeat. I understand it's very easy to recognize me as that, but in reality, if you understood the amount of stress and pressure that I'm under and how difficult it is for me to communicate, and how every attempt that I've made to communicate through Jamie, who's a very, very incredible communicator, has been met with nothing but resistance. And when I say that I say that in the light of, there are private conversations with attorneys that I don't want Jamie involved in. There are obviously conversations with my kids I don't need involved with Jamie. And obviously there's conversation with Mal. None of that requires Jamie. And the idea of Jamie's involvement in legal communication only stemmed from the fact that I'm dealing with matters of perjury, lying under oath, inconsistencies, false reporting, and virtually zero fact-based evidence that has led to me sitting in jail for 31 days. All charges haven't been dismissed except for one, which is left, which is basically me talking on YouTube as if I'm talking to my wife, addressing her in a metaphorical sense in order to release anxiety and the pain of being separated from my children. And in response to that, by her stalking me, meaning that like literally she is told, listen, stay away from Dan. But instead of that, she's stalking me, watching every single video and saying, he is threatening me. I spent 7 days in jail. I swear to fucking God, people are freaking out in the background. Constitutional lawyers, I'm asking everyone to stand down, please. I want to go to trial. There's a trial. There are questions that are going to be asked. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. There's going to be exactly 21 questions, no more. Exactly 31 questions. 21 questions is somebody else's thing. I have 31 questions. Not a big, how much is 31 questions? That's it, 31 questions. In my first case, I asked 0 questions in case anyone cares. And the reason for that is because I spent 0 days in jail. But 31 days in jail allow me to ask 31 questions without any criticism or any of the kind. I would say that if they're answered in a fast manner, it would not take more than 1 to 2 hours. In a trial, that is far less than you think. But when a human being has their First Amendment rights violated and thrown in jail in response in 2026, this isn't the 1950s, guys. I'm not Lenny Bruce, okay? Lenny Bruce would drop the N-bomb in the 50s during race riots. That shit incites riots, in case you're like curious about why Lenny Bruce was arrested. Because there's truth. My shit doesn't incite anything except my ex-wife finding a reason to walk into a police department and having me arrested. That's not a legitimate reason. Anyways, so now that I'm not on drugs and I'm still Dan Reeses, I want to point out, and the reason why I say that the whole drugs thing is I thought that like I was accused of being a drug addict because I had to take cancer medication and Xanax to calm down. But then I realized that I'm being accused of doing real drugs, at which point then it became doing some fake drugs. At which point, then it became, I'm harassing. At which point it became, I'm a deadbeat dad after being kicked out of my own house and not being able to see my kids or sell any of my things or get any of my clothes. I had to only return 2 or 3 times for maybe an hour in fucking 10 months of a house that I spent 4 years building myself. Well, I mean, you know, Rolando and Company, as I call it. Sorry, I just don't think anyone understood the amount of effort I took to dig out 4,000 square feet of basement space, which never happened. I don't remember. What? No, I'm just kidding. Look, the reality is with some flooding issues and we had some other issues and things like that, and it was a post-COVID time, so it needs to be reevaluated with fresh eyes that are not under the same stress and strains and pressures. The inspector was significantly old and he has retired since then. And I'm a guy that's lived in town his whole life, so I don't play games, but I did have about $7,000 or $8,000 stolen with some rate of return on the bond. I would say it was probably maybe 8,000, 9,000. Who cares? The point is the township, in response to everything, has also on top of that stolen an $8,000. I mean, they say it's $6,500, but I remember I paid like 8 to 10 or 16. Irregardless, when the town has you arrested 6 times without probable cause after you trying to go to the county for a support for being a victim of physical domestic violence for the last 6 years and having your children witness it, and the town goes out of its way to have you arrested 6 times, arrest your assistant, deny the fact that any of this happened, and subsequently then go to steal your money, ignore crimes that continue to occur. And I'm looking at signs for politicians go up in the town as if nothing happened. Well, then let's see what a federal judge has to say about that. And then we go up. You see, the Supreme Court of the United States needs to see exactly what's been going on in both Livingston, New Jersey, Essex County, and the state of New Jersey. And once the Supreme Court sees the amount of corruption that has rippled from one senator, Keystone, and the reason why I say this is more like a boom, 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 pockets of corruption everywhere. And they stem from a concept that I did not pioneer. But there's an idea. And the idea is very simple. If I work for the government works for me. And the truth is that the government works for us. This is a society of a democratic system of elected officials, law enforcement officers, and judges that are appointed by the same said elected officials / circumstances that are unique to each venue and jurisdiction. Now, except the federal system, as well as the Supreme Court. Now, when it comes to the reality of what we're dealing with is that we're dealing in very scary times. And when you have law enforcement officers that are routinely on body camera, it doesn't allow them to, I don't want to say break the law, but let's say you're questioning a suspect and you're dealing with a time-sensitive matter where, like, a kidnap victim. Well, when you're on body camera and you forget to read a Miranda right and you get the confession, what's to say the confession is not thrown out? And that's where you get people that don't want to get the confession because you're going to look bad, you're going to waste prosecution resources, and you get a complete stall. A stall in real law enforcement. And fake law enforcement comes in dressed in everything, and they're covered in this Amazon shit. You ever see these guys? They're just covered. It's like, I've got $1,200 of Amazon flashlights, glove kits, sanitation hook things. It is absolutely humiliating. They look like a piñata Christmas tree, tactical assault SWAT team mix. And that's in respect to the real law enforcement officers that actually put themselves in danger wearing a bulletproof vest and driving a car. If you go into urban communities where undercover detectives drive, they don't have shit on them except a bulletproof vest, a firearm, another firearm, and most likely a third firearm with at least 6 clips. And I'm sorry, I've been on some of these. On the law enforcement side, not on the criminals. I guess I've seen a few like soft raids to come like get me where I'm not going anywhere, and nor did I even commit a crime. Anything I'm talking about has to do with marijuana, and then there's the Cartier issue, which I just I'll talk about at a different time because I plan on writing a movie about that, and I don't want to shoot myself in the foot by giving away the start. Now, when it comes to the reality of the facts, everything that I say is documented. Well, not everything. I mean, the stories about my grandfather, I really don't give a shit if you believe me or not. I swear, I think that I truly believe that as a war hero and a man who has provided everything to anyone who's ever met, he deserves the respect that I give him. But, you know, if my family wants to go out of its way, and that's why I say to my brother Mark, like, his grandfather is also a war hero because we have the same grandfather. And when you look at me and Mark, one of the jokes that Mark and I, you know, we used to kid around about, and then eventually, I think that the jokes might have somehow got a little serious, but Mark's skin and complexion, as well as his persona, are not at all like mine. But on the phone, Mark's voice is indistinguishable from mine. And that's because I've changed my voice when I was going through puberty so that I can utilize my brother's age of being over 18 in order to order things or sign up for things. And that actually happened. So my voice sounds this way because I sound like Mark, not vice versa. Because he's my older brother. He's almost 5 years older than me. And at that time, please remember, maybe right now I'm a little bit bigger than him, but he was always much taller than me because I didn't even hit a growth spurt until 10th grade. Now, when I say certain words, I wanted to tell you guys that I thought of some really amazing superhero names for some of my friends, but the lead-in for what it is doesn't really work. So I'll just simply go into,
You relish every moment.
like, so for example, I don't know if anyone's seen the F1 movie, but Brad Pitt likes to wear my headphones. I know a lot of you is like, millions of these headphones have been sold. Cool, that's amazing. Good for everyone else. But I, Daniel M. Reeses, only think about my headphones that my wife gave me and I love more than anything, and I wear exactly like he does. And I like Brad Pitt, not in like that type of way. Just I think he's a really cool guy. And I think it's really weird that Mal's lawyer is trying to do the whole Brad Pitt, old man, white teeth, dyed hair, but he's like really unattractive. The lawyer, Smuro, inside and outside, and he's just a really, really bad human being. So no amount of like hair dye or like bracelet. I don't know what goes on in that man's mouth, but I know what goes out of his mouth, and that's straight bullshit. And he commits crimes, and it's like very weird because I tried to tell him, and when I showed the badge in court, this guy said, "Would you get a Cracker Jack or whatever?" So that night, I just made sure that it's either addressed or taken away, not because of like I set anything up, but the issue called for it, so I took it out. And rather than addressing something very serious, law enforcement decided to arrest me for bringing to their attention a very serious criminal matter. Now, I'm no stranger to false arrests, but I don't really experience actual Batman moments where human beings who are going out of their way to help other human beings are actually they themselves the subject of the issue. And this was one of the most bizarre set of circumstances you can imagine, because they're like, I can't really even get into any of the details, but I promise you, I shit you not, I have experienced some of the weirdest fucking things in the entire world. And there is a very serious element at this that I will never talk about. And then there's like another element, and then there's like a fourth. It is actually one of the weirdest things in the entire world. Oh, and by the way, I'm more than happy to take a blood test, or I don't like needles, so it has to be like something like I definitely have to either get all my shit back or get all my buildings back or something like that once you find out I'm not on any drugs. And I'm more than happy to have a conversation with as many mental health professionals as you want, who will only confirm that I'm extremely hyperactive. And my hyperactiveness has been classified as ADD, ADHD. I am not a doctor. I only was taking prescription medication based on the directive of multiple medical professionals from a very young age who have not loosely, but via paperwork, diagnosed me since I was a kid with ADD. The courts rejected that diagnosis, and right now, the Essex County Court, family Vicinage, does not recognize the guy that you're watching as having an adult with a disability. Like ADD even sounds like adult disability. Like the actual word sounds like adult disability disorder. But it stands for attention deficit disorder, but it actually works perfectly of adult disability disorder. And like when it gets to that weirdness, I do the best I can to not tell people the reality of monkey math of the fact that my wife and I both grew up in almost identical floor plan ranches, except mine was on a hill, so I have 2 floor exposed. But like 115 is 7, 113 is 7. We moved from 221, which is 5. I also have 221 in Newark, which is 5, and then we went from 63, which is 9, to 45, which is 9. We went from 16 to 16. Her brother bought 7. Like, the quantity of mathematical computations. Now, there is false promises, false positives, and this association of information that is clearly associated, or false associations made on information that clearly is coincidental. Either way, it is a matter of perspective. And at the end of the day, nothing that I'm discussing on this channel warrants my children to be taken from me. At no time does a human being who is eccentric, loving, and has shown the entire world the quantity of good things that I do, not to mention Rittenhouse and God knows what else I've done on a daily basis. And the reason why I say this is because I understand. I recognize that by not having a social media presence, I do not understand why you value this, why you hate it, or why you like it. Because this is not real to me, meaning like YouTube is not real. This is real. I'm in a kitchen that looks like a studio, but it's real. You know, like I'm sorry, I'm not a kitchen, a house. I mean, I see the kitchen, but in general, when you see this on YouTube, you see them in the kitchen and things like that. It's things that you want to see are not here, and that's not what this is for. There are billions of human beings that, or at this point, enough AI. We have more AI generated content than humans right now in this world, in case anyone gives a shit, but it doesn't matter. And it's like the same thing. If you look at Mal and the gentleman who started, you know, there's a Purple Heart in there. Jamie has 2 grandfathers that are both war heroes, and one of them moved to Pittsburgh and was not financially successful, but he was a kind man, and a lot of that has to do with reflection of things I don't know about. So when Jamie one day is ever able to discuss it, I'll be able to get into it. And I'm not here to talk about anyone's business. I'm just trying to tell you that when I saw Jamie Resnick, I saw 2-time state champion tennis player. But the reality is she wasn't just a 2-time state tennis player. Something happened, something that I don't want to talk about, when she was a sophomore. And I swear to fucking God, if I told you what actually happened and you heard that she won, not 1, but 2 state championship doubles. And I want to remind everyone that Milburn was okay before 1993 and 1994. And after that, Milburn became a powerhouse in tennis. So she was like the Jackie Robinson. And I say this because obviously there is, or you could put her as, realistically, she's like Honus Wagner of Milburn tennis. And Milburn tennis is very important because Short Hills is in Milburn, and there are a lot of kids whose parents are extremely well-to-do who don't send their kids to school, because when I was growing up in Livingston, our only competition was Milburn. Obviously, I destroyed them and absolutely everything. But in general, I'm talking about like the events that I was involved in. They didn't even come close in FBLA. I mean, no, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. It's not that kind of environment. But I was beaten by Jennifer Shetson in mock trial, which I have a lot to say about. But even though I put on a great case, it was a respectful case. I was a little bit aggressive. She beat me. My client died and was found guilty of manslaughter. It was a car accident case, and I was much more focused on myself than actually doing the work that was required. And the reason why I thought that she should win is because she was better prepared, not because she was a better lawyer. And that was 30 years ago or some shit like that. And even to this day, I still believe that she deserved to win. Like, I thought that I was a much better lawyer, but she was much better prepared. And even though she's a year younger than me, and people from Livingston look down at people from West Orange for some reason, she won. She was the lead chair of council. I was the lead chair. Whatever. It happens. But I don't lose often in court, and that's one of the rare losses. And the reason for that is because I don't engage in legal complex matters that involve lying or some form of issues. And the reason why I say this is because I will not let anyone represent me in court for the rest of my life. I believe that that is the true nature of the launch of ProSlay, is when I say to everyone that as long as I'm breathing alive and I have access to my systems and my algorithms that I have spent years perfecting, I will not be using any private counsel as much as I humanly can. That's not to say I won't have standby counsel, like there's a few human beings from certain corporations that have very strong financial interests that are riding on the outcome of my case. So in case anyone's wondering, you could forget about the word censorship if I lose. And that's the last case. I don't have anything left. Oh, and I mean, what happened last week, but I would love to actually have a conversation with a human being that cares about, I can't even mention what happened. So, see, I'm a boy dad, and I've always been really respectful to women to a point where people think I have some sort of a motivation. Like, you know how like rapists are like extra nice to lure women? Like real rapists. I mean, I'm not talking about like the guys that like kidnap in the movies. I mean, like things that like nightmare scenarios that you hear about. And one thing that really, really upsetting me, and I can't talk to Jamie about this, is that on my last day of my 31st day, I was paired up with a Spanish kid in my dorm. I was first with an angel. His name was Gabriel. He was incredible. And it was Daniel and Gabriel for 6 days, and we had a great communication. But then on day 7 came a gentleman who looked identical to one of my workers that I really liked. And he almost looked like his son, to a point where I started communicating with him. And to me, I'm very naive, and his kindness, and believe it or not, when you're in a small cell, if the person that you're speaking to can't physically kill you, you have nothing to worry about. I know that most people are very scared of human beings that might have done crimes on the outside of the jail, but if you know how to handle yourself, both with your mouth and general demeanor of fists, or like grappling when you're in a small situation, you really don't have that much to be concerned about. Especially if you're not looking to gamble, do drugs, have gay sex, which is totally okay. I am totally pro homosexuality. I'm just not pro communication about what happens in either army or prisons. Meaning, like, I'm cool with everything. I don't want to be a part of it, nor do I want to know about it, because it's really been a big issue of contention and conflict amongst people who don't really understand that people's sexuality is their own fucking business. Even people who put their own sexuality in public, I don't know if that's the smartest thing, because one of the things that I always like to joke about is like, today in the present right now I'm straight, but tomorrow I could be gay. And who knows what happened yesterday by the very definition of each human being's definition of what sex is. So to me, I don't judge other people. And I'm very much against people who do the judging. And I'll be the first one to make a really funny gay joke, but that's not out of context to a culture that is both Jewish and Russian that uses humor in order to express the validity of the paradox. So for example, one of the things I've always found extremely funny is how uptight certain gay people are about plastic or environment things, especially based on when they get wealthier and wealthier. And the reason why I say this is because I believe that tolerance is a huge part of being openly homosexual in our society. So the fact that the human beings that are same-sex oriented, comfortable, well-to-do, have absolutely zero tolerance for anyone that's different than them is ironic and comical. And my brother and I were once in line. See, I'm going to tell you this, and I want to tell you right now that I am one of the biggest fans or supporters of the lesbian community. I'm not really into the gay community because I've never had anyone really expose me to the geopolitical aspect of the gay community, but I know that the lesbian community is extremely strong, and when I ran pawn shops, I was extremely mindful of the difficulties that human beings who are grown up in an environment where they're sexually molested and don't have a chance to... I've had multiple conversations with very, very intelligent women of same-sex orientation that expressed to me that a big part of the community never had a chance to develop sexually because they were raped as children by the very nature of being born into a family that didn't have the support structure. And once that realization came into play, I realized it's very similar to like eunuchs or children that are born or given, like the kids that Michael Jackson raped. He didn't like scoop them up or anything like that. This isn't like, the Detroit Boys Choir. These are human beings who are adults who voluntarily signed a mountain of paperwork this big and received checks and cash and compensation for their children being allowed to legally sleep over Michael Jackson's house. Now, if you as a human being, or what's worse, as a parent, find that to be okay, then I would like for you to unsubscribe from this channel immediately. Because to me, it was not okay before I even had kids. And saying it out loud on YouTube and really understanding the validity of, and I'm looking to make sure that at no time does Jamie hear this conversation, because I don't believe that she should ever be dealing with what she's dealing with. I believe that as a father, I find it appalling that her parents did not address the situation and only looked at her talents. It's true, Jamie's an incredible tennis player, but she can only play doubles. And the reason for that is because she doesn't have the support on the court. And I'm a rapper, Look, support on the court is very, very important. Support in the court is even more important. So a doubles partner and a lawyer are not the same thing. And sometimes a human being in court just needs a doubles partner next to them. Someone that's a friend, someone that's like, hey, you got this, and things like that. So part of the pro se business model will allow human beings, pro slay, excuse me. Oh my God, it's so good. Even I'm getting it confused. Now, if that's not an adverse, subliminal commercial, I don't know what is. Because the reality is that in my brain, the word pro se is far less important than the word pro slay. Because pro se, you have zero respect. You actually have negative respect. Judges look at pro se litigants not with the same favor, but as human beings that are problematic and are not conducive to their time. You see, a judge wants to do their job, but they're always talking about the next case. And that's one thing that I don't believe the judges should be allowed to do. I don't believe a judge should ever be allowed to mention, I have a full docket, or Mr. Rhesus, I'm very busy today, I don't have time for this. Your Honor, if you don't have time for my case, how do you have time for the next case? Or the next case, do you just tell that person you don't have time for them? It doesn't even make any sense. And it's a culture that has really developed based on Hollywood's interpretation of the way judges speak. And the reason why I say this is because I don't know what Judge Fest is all about, nor do I understand the concept of being a judge, because I'm not even a lawyer. I don't want to be a judge. I don't want to take the responsibility. I also don't believe that the majority of the judges' jobs or the judges need to be around anymore, because artificial intelligence as well as fact-based, data-driven analytics should dominate the landscape of evidence production and the analysis of said evidence, not one human being who barely has the capacity to review the current caseload, let alone what's coming in the future, or at least the reality of the amount of digital evidence that needs to be processed. So this judge, I right now, believe it or not, I have the second longest pro se trial in U.S. history. Number one is Vin Diesel, where he brings the chair in, find me guilty. And I think Aaron Brockovich is on the list. And I want to say the dude that's played by Greg Kinnear in Stroke of Genius. We're talking about some really, really big level names, and my case doesn't even get an article in the local newspaper. And I don't want it to. That's the whole point. I have no interest for my children. I'll give you an example, okay? The smartest human from Livingston High School that I've seen in the last 5 years is a guy named Rob Goodwin. Why? One, I never met Rob. Two, he's a hero. I think he saved Lauren Canterex's life, maybe his own life. Who knows? Don't know the circumstance. Three, he wasn't in the documentary. Thank God. What a smart guy. What an intelligent man who says to himself, look, maybe this happened, maybe it didn't. But right now I need a little bit of time to make this fucking decision. Maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years. They're not that old. They're maybe 2 years, 3 years older than me. And I'm kind of old, so they're probably 46 at most, maybe 45. She looks pretty good, so I'm sure he's not that ugly. And the reality of him saying no is one of the most powerful statements you can imagine. I don't know anything about him, but if Pete's friends with him, he's probably a solid dude. Pete's a good fucking solid dude, and I know he's not friends with scumbags. So whoever you are, Rob Goodwin, I would love to shake hands with you and call you an actual hero, because that's what you deserve. And I don't know what the fuck is going on, or as Les Grossman says, I don't know what Pan Pacific power play bullshit the state police is trying to pull. But Jersey's my territory. When something like that happens in New Jersey and a hero like you is either not recognized or an international audience is exposed to an incorrect set of narratives, it really says to me, look, obviously I'm not going to get involved in this matter until I meet this human being, but maybe, just maybe, some people are not interested in having their life morphed into entertainment and profit by $1 trillion. And I say trillion because people don't really understand inflation, time, and the concept of this channel staying just as relevant in 5 years. You see, the subject matters that I discussed strictly, and please, in order to remember how difficult it is to do this content, I urge all of you to sit down with your phone, flip it, and start talking, but only talk about exactly what's on your mind. If you leave a single detail out about what's on your mind, you're lying. You're absolutely lying. For example, one of the things that I didn't know until this week was that Jared Resnick, my assistant's husband, had 1,000 friends before they ever met, and he was the one that convinced her to go onto Facebook. Now, I've never had Facebook because I don't want to meet any women or keep in contact with any women that I knew in the past, other than I had 1 or 2 friends, and I ran into one of them and we became couple friends, and I still, even though she isn't a very good friend to me, you can't judge a human being based on something you don't know. She might be going through something as well. I am here for her. At no time will I ever judge her, and I just can laugh and say, look, we didn't talk for a decade. It's not like, a year is a big deal, and at the same time, we had a really accelerated truth-based relationship, and that's gone. Because the thing is, I'm a chivalrous man, and I went out of my way to never, ever, ever fight in sport or in reality in front of any women that I really knew. So when this girl became my best friend, she actually saw me do 30 rounds of boxing with these like large gloves, bar mitzvahs, and that was also at Cedar Hill, obviously. And it wasn't until, it was at Matt Rose's bar mitzvah, and it wasn't until the other kids were so frustrated and upset at me that they brought in a ringer who was a year older than me, and I know that's not a big deal to everyone, but in 7th to 8th grade, and plus he was in Heritage, that's another year older, and I think he actually was a year older, so it's like a high school freshman fighting a 7th grader, which is a big difference, and I was actually winning, and he took the 2 gloves and he shoved me into the glass, and there was a piece of glass that broke, and I didn't get cut. I hit myself on the wooden slat. But the point of this, I was like, you know what? This is the 31st round. I'm absolutely exhausted. And I was already like, I met this girl that I wanted to be friends with. But there was not enough oxygen in there, and I don't know if anyone's ever boxed for 30 rounds, but it's not as easy as it looks, let alone winning 30 rounds in a row, except the 31st where I lost, disqualified. His name is Jason Gusto, and he beat me, and that's it. And when it comes to... I needed oxygen because I couldn't breathe, and I went outside, and I was like just out, like with my head sunk over. I didn't have the easiest childhood, and my friend came out and she sat with me, and it was really, really cool. And I'll never turn my back on her, and I'll never be mad at her, and I wanted to wish her a happy Mother's Day, but it's hard to reach out to people that you don't know if they want you to reach out to them. Sometimes people don't pick up the phone, sometimes people click you. It hurts. It really does. So, it hurts. So I can understand how old people are like, oh, you never called me once. Because when you reach out to people that you've been good to your whole life, and they don't reciprocate even saying hello, or text back saying, hey, I don't think that it's a good idea for us to be friends because of XYZ, it really, really hurts a lot more than perhaps I show it on YouTube, because essentially I haven't seen my kids in 10 months. So my priorities are not worrying about old friends that I haven't seen. I gotta get my kids in my life. I gotta get my life stabilized, which I can't do because I'm a victim of so many crimes that my wife saw the amount of crimes that are committed against me. She's like, why don't I just do the same thing? No one's doing anything to help Dan. I'm just gonna take everything I can. And she has a lawyer that's committing crimes. There's this man, Matthew Smora, who's about to be charged with kidnapping and alienation, false reporting, and a series of other things, and he's laughing at me in court. Laughing. Can you imagine if every Russian man that's watching this had their children stolen from them, and this attorney is laughing at you, collecting hundreds and thousands of dollars by lying? Well, okay. Now, I want to express that I am very much anti-violence, and I want nothing ever bad to happen to Matthew Smora. So please think twice before you do anything. And anything that should happen, please understand I have nothing to do with. If there's an accident or anything, I have nothing to do with it. This is not some veiled threat or anything like that. This man drives from Red Bank to Newark all the time. If he gets in an accident, I don't want to hear it. I have nothing to do with it. And the reason why I say this is because human beings are so quick to blame the people that are so easiest to blame for something that happens, that as I film this content, I'm like, wait a second. I just filmed something that can easily be misconstrued, misrepresented, and fear-based if you are committing a crime. Now, if you're not committing a crime, what I filmed has no relevance. But you would only be afraid of it if you actually did something. So, that's the real question. Is the content that I film harassing or truthful? And where's the line between what a person is allowed to say when they're a victim of a crime or kidnapping or alienation or any of the basic parental rights? And please understand that I don't see children as dogs, but can you imagine a world where you're given a pet and told that at any time, if you get into a car accident, your pet will be taken away from you? Who would ever buy a dog if they knew that if someone hit them in a car accident, they would lose their dog? And the point of this is that I just wouldn't be a father if I knew that the laws of society supported human beings that have the money to go into court and lie. And I don't think anyone should, because it's sadistic what has happened to me. I don't have the ability to suppress the pain that I'm under, and I don't think anyone understands that yelling at me after taking my children, my home, and everything away from me only proves my point that there is a massive motivation behind the actors. People don't just support a woman who wants everything and gives her everything unless there's a reason for it. And I'm sorry, you have to be a complete fucking moron to not see it. Literally, a moron! There's a reason. I know, I'm a loser, I'm a nobody, I totally fucking get it. Then explain to me why the fuck everyone cares so much. Look, the concept of going out of your way to say no one cares, you're a complete loser and you're lying, while at the same time looking at all the facts that fully support every word I say, only shows that you're not in a mental state to be making comments. That's it. If you're a human being that can look at a video and see one human being assaulting another human and say that human being hit the person out of self-defense, you're not in a position to make adult decisions on your own behalf. You are not in a state of mental competency. If you believe that hitting another person is a reason, and self-defense is a reason, meaning unprovoked violence is a reason, and self-defense is a viable reason, either you have the world's dumbest fucking lawyer in the world, or there's a huge, huge issue going on right here. And the issue really stems from the fact that human beings who engage in social media, so for example, if you got into social media in 2010, the butterfly effect erases every memory that you've had forward and backwards. So what happens is, in 2020, you will erase everything all the way back to 2000. So if, say, you met me in 2000 or 2001, you'll go to 2022 from 2019, 2020, until your brain starts to completely deteriorate. And then more likely than not, if you started in 2012, it'll be 2024, and it'll string back a little bit further for the last couple of years of high school. So those memories are all gone also. And the reason why I say that is because after talking to Jamie, I realized that she has very little memories up until 1991. And that's why she negated to mention all the facts that she said about her successes. She was the champion of the like rich girls league. I don't know how to say, like rich white girls, Pingree, Morristown Baird, like anywhere your father is cheating on your mother by your mother's friend, and like there's cocaine involved. Those girls were really good at tennis, and Jamie was the best at the doubles. And believe it or not, it's a completely different sport. And I say this based on what she taught me. And if you don't believe a state champion 3 years in a row is qualified to discuss subject matters such as tennis, then once again, It's the same people that believe that anybody on earth can just take a golf club, have it milled anything they want, write Donald Trump on it, and there you go. Because in order to deny what I'm saying, you have to go out of your way to create an invented set of circumstances. Because what I present is facts. I present facts, I present logic, I present everything else. What you present is an invented story to counter my facts. That is not the same thing as being able to disprove me. That only proves me, actually. The fact that it's been 6 years of me filming content and I haven't had a single person that's been able to stand up here and say, hey, you're not telling me the truth about this and this. And I welcome this person. Because what I would say is like, well, what am I lying about? And this person would say that, and I'll be like, look, this channel is about truth. The truth doesn't exist unless I can be wrong. I am more than happy to be wrong on many circumstances, and I'm here to debate. But if I win the debate, there are stakes at hand. And the fear of being humiliated on YouTube, not to mention the fact that I 100% guarantee you that if I take your challenge, I already have won. Not to mention the fact that there's not been a single challenger. Not been a single person to disprove a single fact that I've said. And only in the real world do things happen that are crimes against myself or Jamie in an attempt to smear everything that I've done over the course of an entire lifetime on behalf of the Russian and American government. That's it. It's not that complicated. It's by human beings who are anti-patriotic, anti-law enforcement. Even law enforcement officers themselves are very, like, for example, if you really believe that there are no COs that are gang members or affiliated with gang members, then you're very naive. I don't know of any, nor did I see of any, nor did I see any gang members. All I saw was a bunch of mentally unstable and good dudes. Two categories. That's it. Everyone falls into them. I met some people that are assholes, but once again, they'd fall into the first category because to be angry or have a conflict with a human being that you've never met before, in my personal opinion, you need to be heavily psychiatrically evaluated because clearly you're inventing a set of circumstances that don't exist. So if for some reason there's something I say that's offensive, that is not a reason for you to pop off. That's a reason for you to say, hey man, why don't you just chill out? I'm going through some stressful shit. And I would shut the fuck up. Because apparently, it turns out that any human being who has the ability to orate themselves is spewing negative nonsense about manhood or women. And one of the most disturbing things that I found is that the tile pics of the women that are encouraging these other women to get divorced and giving legal advice on social media. For example, my wife's lawyer is big on giving social media legal advice. That allows her to get more income because she looks like an expert in subject matter and she will be able to do whatever you need. But one thing you need to understand is this human being takes cases from both sides. So if you want a lawyer that really knows how to take down a walkaway wife, you hire this girl, Jamie. And yeah, they're all named Jamie. There's like 5 Jamies at this point. No, literally 5 Jamies. I don't understand how I'm supposed to submit legal documents when there's 5 human beings named Jamie. So, maybe 4, maybe 6. I'm not really sure at this point, but I know there's definitely more than 2, and that's fucking weird. And I guarantee you there's 3, and there's a 4th, and then that's why I say at this point it's 5, because... No, okay, look, here's how it goes. If you're not able to disprove a human being based on logic, facts, and everything that you can find, then they're not lying. They're just not able to reach the bar that you have for them. Does this make any sense? And I want to leave everyone with a very simple quote, and that is, I'm not saying I'm not wrong. You and I sure as shit know that I'm right. No, flip it. Hey, good evening. My name is Dan Rieses, and right now I have my headphones on blast, so I can't hear what I'm saying. And the reason why I did this is because I wanted to let everybody know what it's like to really be significantly handicapped. And right now, as the song rotates over, I'm able to hear my voice, so I'm able to sense the vibration of my jawbone, so I'm able to calculate what needs to happen. So emotionally speaking, it's impossible for me to read the room unless I see people's lips. Oh, this song is not what I want. So luckily for me, now this song is on blast. The good people at Apple are supposed to, I don't know. There's something called the user interface. Look it up. So if anyone's ever seen Something About Mary, Warren is her brother, and it's a great character. But sensory deprivation is a very, very serious issue that affects many people with disorders. That doesn't mean they're mentally ill. And I think that it's very important for everyone to understand that I stand up for people like that. You can laugh at me. It's cool. Trust me. I'll still keep going. And I'll always win. You see, that's what I'm designed for. In about 24 hours, it will be 8 days since I would have no opioids in my system, which means that I'll be clear as day for the first time in 7 or 8 years. You see, the reason why it's a big deal is because a lot of people don't understand when human beings have physical pain and emotional pain. Sometimes there's a crossover. And I haven't lied about a single thing about me being a federal agent. I think people are insane to think that a human being, not one, but two trials in the centuries with no college degree or legal educational training whatsoever. And the fact that people actually have that in their minds, I feel bad for you. And because I need to learn how to control myself without knowing what is going on. No one on earth can read everyone's lips on earth, but I can. Because I know what everyone's thinking. This guy's completely crazy. He looks horrible. But ladies and gentlemen, I don't even want cigarettes. Doja Cat, there she goes. Oh, did I give away what song I'm listening to? You guys think it's karate? It's a stick shift, Brad Pitt. F1, it's a good movie. I heard it's big or popular. I don't know. Or maybe I'm just crazy. Pierce Casper. I gotta chill. How can I chill with a song like this? With Doja Cat? See, people live with handicaps, and these songs help them. And there's a whole world of people to laugh at you, so you don't don't do anyone any favors. And this is it. It's the last time I'm gonna cry for a while. I'll tell you why. A human being who is going through, even for me, who had very light doses of opioids, being in my system, what happens is a human brain inadvertently will automatically gravitate. Please understand the song's on blast, so I'm sorry. The human brain will automatically gravitate towards justification by any means to get rid of both physical or mental pain. So for me personally, I didn't recognize the crossover and the overlap and the similarities, and I still will need some time to really dissect every moment. But essentially, when I say I had a pain in my ass and a pain in my ass, and they crossed into emotionally and physically, I literally mean this. And it wasn't until all the opioids, in my opinion, started to really deplete out of my body that I recognized that, one, Scott Levenberg is completely insane. The fact that, like, I even tolerated any of that, and the worst that I did was a YouTube video, and that's not to say I'll ever reach out to him or ever see him or hurt him. I just don't think I'll probably ever mention him or his stupidity on YouTube again. I might mention the lovable fat kid that I grew up with, but the fact that I even paid him a second of my life is probably the opioids that were very slowly in my system reaching out for another addict or something. Honestly, genuinely, I don't know what it is, but one of the most important parts about this is that, sorry, I get a little too loud, I know. Heart rate's up, you know, a lot of people wish they had the balls to film a video like this, but they don't. I'm alone. You got a bunch of edited bullshit. You don't have a man with his mind. That's what you're so scared of. Nothing else. There's nothing else. That's what you don't get. I never had Facebook. I'm not scared. I'm a human being. I am not prone to addiction, luckily. I dealt in some serious businesses in my day. That's all I'm going to say about that for now. I'm not a bad guy. I never hurt anyone. I mean, except Bob Menendez. No, I'm just kidding. I like Doja Cat. So I do like. But who gives a shit who I like, right? My name is Dan Rhesus, and I want everyone to understand that, like, I don't think any of you have a clue of what actually is going on off camera that I choose not to show. Why? Because it's almost too good to be true. Because when you actually are at the center of one of the most insanely true crime dramas in the history of the United States, there's no reason to get overly excited. It's going to play out the way it's going to play out. It's too big. It's out of my control. See, that's what you guys don't understand. It's got national without you knowing it. What do you guys think? You're like so special that the guy that ran 2 national trials has his kids taken away and nobody like blinks an eye? You just don't know it yet. Because the truth is, I got to see the court order. Until I see the court order, what I hear is nothing more than, what did I say? Hearsay, right? It's just hearsay. When I see that signed court order, well then hearsay turns into my testimony. Stop making yourself feel so shitty. There's a whole world of people that'll do that for you. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dan Rhesus. I got a split. Whoa, that was crazy. I think, oh, I have a stain on my shirt. Wow. You know, I want to blame myself, but I don't film alone. So I'm gonna have to throw the blame on the camera person who actually is in the room today. And believe it or not, if you catch me in an inadvertent live, I know it's very hard for human beings to understand that I make mistakes. I'm not saying I made a mistake about some key critical facts of my life. I'm saying that there are some times that I do make a mistake and I find it, see, she's able to tell me that my hair is fucked up so I can fix it, but Lord forbid, I actually, you know what? I'll be honest with you, I don't even need this. Sorry, I didn't even get naked. Good Lord. All right, anyways, so I'm not naked, but luckily I'm not as fat as I used to be, so if you saw some dad bod, I am sorry. I'm no Floyd Smyrnich, but I definitely can tell when I'm not wanted in a certain situation. And truth be told on this whole entire matter, I truly do believe, is my hair that bad that requires a hat? All right. All right. Truth be told, I think that I need to see some court orders and some movement because, truthfully, I find it extremely paradoxical that a few small handful of judges and prosecutors can really truly believe that they can get away with certain things. And one of the things that I find extremely arrogant and appalling is the flagrancy of the human beings who really enforce the rules but break the law at the same time. And to me, as a human being who grew up in a different country, I truly, and sorry about the whole headphone thing, I was really thinking about, like, how can I express what it's like to both be a human being who's living with a disability, who literally has to advocate about himself to express that I don't have a mental illness. I know that people want to attribute what I have as a mental illness for their convenience, but I believe that there's an actual legal and medical distinction, and as well as a police and responsibility to make that distinguishing factor versus a disorder versus a mental illness. And I'm not trying to weaponize mental illness either. Be careful, because very, very quickly can people attribute, well, it's a beautiful day and the sun is shining. And one of the things that I've always found it to be, and I will tell you that my ability to maintain a very open front about not being an addict truly comes from my father's side, whereas, but I will tell you, I did see my mom stop smoking overnight, and once again, whether or not you guys believe me, I really don't care. She got really, really sick one day. I was, let's see now, 24, and I really hated her smoking cigarettes. So yeah, she just stopped. But in general, her penchant for substances has never been something that I've found to be an appealing factor that I looked up to. So I didn't start drinking alcohol until probably 11th and a half grade or something like that. And then, you know, the concept of using coming from somebody like myself who probably has, I think by the time I was arrested, I was accused of 11 metric tons or something like that. I wasn't really paying attention because the whole 25 to life was really a priority. And you know, one of the funnier parts about this entire narrative is that my brother and mother weren't that disturbed that I was looking at 25 to life. And I was on a $500,000 bail, and what's fascinating to me is the multiple trips that I took to Europe on a $500,000 bail without anyone balking. Now, I'm going to explain to you something. I know a lot of people might not believe this, but I speak Russian fluently. When a human being is facing 25 to life and they're already in Europe, the motivation to go back to America is literally zero. Not to mention the fact that I speak multiple languages and can blend into any environment and never return to this godforsaken land. I did it because I'm a federal agent, and I thought that I was in the middle of a very important operation that was international and involved Passaic County and things that I don't want to talk about. But apparently, based on last week's events, it seems like people are trying to rewrite documented history that's literally inside of court records. So it's okay. I don't mind. This is not that long ago. It's not like it's 100 years ago. Most of the people that I worked with that are young are still on the force and can be called as witnesses, and it's a very, very strange set of circumstances after you've given hundreds and thousands of dollars of your hard-earned income to an entire police department of NYPD. In return, you're then arrested in New Jersey for identifying yourself as a friend of the badge while never claiming to be a part of law enforcement. You know, honestly, guys, like, with all due respect, like, this is why I never wanted to be a part of law enforcement, because in my culture in Russia, the cops are all dirty. Like, there's the concept of a clean cop doesn't even exist. And like, that's why they're called garbage men, musara. Like honestly, and there's nothing like wrong with it in that culture. But in the United States of America, we believe in the badge. Like, we're big, big supporters of law enforcement. Most people sleep well at night knowing that their local police department is doing their jobs. Now, what I have seen over the last couple of years is really, really scary. It makes your blood pressure spike. It makes you say, wow, I gotta find a different country to live in, or maybe a different part of the country, and then sue this part of the country for fucking up my life because I'm not some weird deadbeat from a Netflix special. That's the other thing. I don't understand why Netflix has no more comedies. I swear to fucking God, every show is about somebody stabbing out somebody that they live with, or like some sort of like a supernatural phenomenon that involves some sort of an unwanted marriage. And there's just subtext everywhere, and everything's written by AI, and you know, the writers don't even look like human beings anymore on IMDb. They're just like this weird like cutout. You try to look at the person, they don't exist. So like, I don't know. I'm not judging a channel for the way they create their content. I'm just saying that a really beautiful science that was celebrated on a yearly basis through the Oscars and truly made the experience of watching time pass in front of your eyes into a memorable experience is simply gone. The time that you spend on social media or whatever apps or garbage you do, gambling, whatever it is, that is not time that you'll ever get back with your friends and family. Whereas a movie that you can share with your loved ones, you don't even need to be in the same place at the same time. Hey, did you see that movie? Yeah, I loved E.T. I loved E.T. too. Doesn't that remind you of when we used to ride bikes as kids? Yeah, it does. See, that conversation does not only not exist anymore. Human beings who used to talk like that are dying by the dozen. And they're not actually dying, they're just turning into this mass cult that needs to constantly be checking their phone, and even worse, be posting about things. And even worse of that is being afraid of what people say about them online. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is the start of what I'm going to go into. But first, I would like to be completely clear-headed because I know that a lot of you will be extremely shocked and disappointed and upset that I finally spoke up, but please understand that having your children taken away from you for 11 months would drive any human being insane. So I apologize for finally speaking the truth. Good luck tomorrow. Sei gesund. I promise you, I'm doing absolutely nothing violent or threatening whatsoever. I will simply be telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and you'll never see it coming.